The federal government announced their proposed budget for 2024, and in there is a lot when it comes to housing. Let's break down what that looks like here in this video. I'm Ouzas. I'm a realtor here in Toronto. I'd love to hear your thoughts when it comes to any of these ideas in the federal budgets. Drop a comment down below as you're watching this video. If you ever want to book in a call with me directly, you can click on that first link in the description down below. Anytime budgets come out, there is so many elements to break down, and well, for this video, we will strictly be focusing on housing. I'd encourage you to take a look at all the different proposals when it comes to the federal budget. This budget is quite lengthy, and there is an entire section when it comes to housing on the Government of Canada website. You can go take a look at everything in depth, but for this video, we are going to head over to some of the news articles to get some of those key takeaways. So take a look, Canada Budget 2024, key highlights from housing to taxes to healthcare. Here's what you need to know in a hurry. And again, as discussed, we will only be focusing on housing for this video. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland introduced the 2024 federal budget on Tuesday. Here's some of the key highlights in housing. Hopes to build 3.9 million new homes across Canada by 2031. I actually plugged that into ChatGPT and wait till you see what those results look like. The government plans to increase the capital cost allowance for apartments from 4 to 10%, allowing builders larger tax write-offs. Extend mortgage amortization period to 30 years for first-time home buyers purchasing new builds. We'll get to that in a second. Make more public lands available for home construction, including Canada Post and National Defence properties, and lease land to developers. Spend $250 million over 2 years to address the urgent issue of encampments and a shortage of shelter space for homeless people. Taxes, high worth individuals, corporations, and trusts will pay more in capital gains taxes. The inclusion rate increases to 66% from 50% on capital gains above $250,000 for individuals and on all capital gains for corporations and trusts. The change is expected to yield an additional $19.4 billion over 4 years. There's lots to unpack there, but the first one we're going to discuss is building 3.9 million new homes by 2031. So I actually went over to ChatGPT just to show you how exactly that looks. What I did was I asked ChatGPT to break down the targets Canada needs to achieve to build 3.9 million homes by 2031, and this is what it came up with. So per year, we need to build 557,143 homes. Per month, approximately 46,429 homes. Per week, 10,714 homes. Per day, 1,525 homes, which is 63 homes an hour and 1 home built per minute. Now, I do think this is an incredibly ambitious statement by the federal government. And we look at how many homes are being built each and every year. That number is not even half of where we're at in these numbers, especially when we factor that basically to get to their goal from today until 2031, that is building 1 home per minute. Now, I know when looking at these numbers for when it comes to homes, we're always thinking low rise, like houses, detached, semi-detached, and townhouses, but these homes are being factored in when it comes to things like condos. And when you build a condo building, you're actually building out 400, 500, 600 units at a time, which definitely helps in the progress. If we pop over to stories.com, this is the average housing starts in Canada for all areas. At the end of 2023, we hit just under 250,000, which is a big difference when it comes to where we need to be building at over 500,000 units per year. And remember that 1 unit per minute. The other element to factor into housing starts is the pre-construction market. And we have seen the pre-construction sales at its all-time low here so far in 2024. And if they don't start construction, it won't really impact our inventory right now. However, if those shovels don't go into the ground in 3 to 5 years, that will have a big impact in housing starts. And I haven't heard anything to address that just yet. And if those government funds will go towards, we may see a significant downfall in helping builders get those shovels in the ground. But if they don't, the amount of housing starts in 2027, 28, and 29. The next piece to discuss is the mortgage amortization going to 30 years for first-time buyers. And while I think that's maybe a great incentive for most areas around the country of Canada, anything in a market like Toronto, Vancouver, where if you're looking to buy a house, even on the pre-construction market, which that 30-year amortization for first-time buyers does apply to new construction only, as far as my understanding. Typically, those freehold properties are starting over $1 million, which if you have a purchase price of over $1 million across Canada, you're putting 20% down by the time the property closes and you go to get the mortgage anyways. Typically something like a 5% down this year, 5% down next year, 5% the year after. And then the remaining remaining 5% due on closing when you go to get that mortgage, which brings you also to 20%, which would allow you to get that 30-year amortization regardless. So I'm not really sure if that announcement has too much to play when it comes to the city of Toronto. That being said, if you are looking to purchase a condo under that $1 million threshold, again, if the deposit structure does not bring you to 20% before closing, then maybe you would be able to get that 30-year amortization, but I don't think it's going to have too much of an effect here in the city of Toronto. The last piece here is discussing the new capital gains tax. And while I'm not a professional accountant, and I would advise you to seek that advice from a chartered accountant, this could play a big factor in the future, not only on investors who own property for a longer period of time, but also for those who maybe have passed away and are giving their property as an inheritance to their children or something of the like. This is where talking to an accountant is super important on how these tax implications may affect you personally. Now, the way they framed it is that this capital gains tax is only for high net worth individuals and corporations, but typically if somebody is earning more than $250,000 on a sale of their rental property, for most people, that amount of money, once it's taxed, may bring them into the highest earner bracket regardless. So I think that's something to consider. The other factor is now anything over that $250,000 threshold is taxed at a higher amount. I think this could present three issues moving forward. The first one is maybe sellers will sell before the deadline of June 25th, which I actually think might be unlikely since we're already almost at the end of April and that's only 2 months away. So maybe not enough time to actually close on the property before June 25th. The second one is maybe sellers won't sell at all. They will just continue to hold their property longer and rent them out for even longer, even if they were considering selling. And the third one would be that maybe those investors would just refinance the property over and over again to not have to pay the capital gains tax until they would end up selling it in the future. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how those play out. And again, if you do need any advice on these capital gains taxes, I would recommend getting that advice from a professional chartered accountant to actually know your options when it comes to these new tax rules. Drop a comment down below on all your thoughts on this new proposed budget and if you think it'll help anything to do with housing. In other videos, we discuss the Renters Bill of Rights, and there are some new incentives when it comes to purpose-built rentals. We've already discussed those in other videos, so we won't go through them today. Love to hear your thoughts on these new proposed announcements by the federal government. I'm Michael Ouzas. Thanks for watching.